When Jesus said, "Follow me," he wasn't asking people to admire him from a distance. He was inviting them to learn his way of life. To follow Jesus meant to walk as he walked, to take on his rhythms, his practices, his posture toward God and others. Our world is vastly different from his, but the human heart is not. And the practices that Jesus took part in are still the practices that he uses for our formation today. Following Jesus now, just as in the scriptures, means giving careful attention to the rhythms that form a life rooted in God. But in order to be transformed by him, we must first make room for him in our lives.
I'm telling you, the theology of that bumper is strong. It is online. You should watch it over and over. It is deep. I'm sitting here listening to it going, man, it's just, and I didn't write it, so it's not like I'm just patting my back, but it's just good. I'll tell you what's not good. Attempting to preach on something that you struggle mightily to practice. But that would be great if that was just the case. Imagine having to speak about something that you may not even believe. Because if I believed it, if I truly believed it, I would hope to think that I would at least make an effort. So if I'm going to preach on patience, maybe I'm not always patient, but at least in the back of my mind, I know that's the standard. I know that's a fruit of the Spirit. I know that's an attribute of God. But the Sabbath, I have followed Jesus since February of 87. I have read the Word. I have preached. I have served the church for 87, coming up 39 years this August. It's the only thing that I've given my life to besides Jesus and my wife. It is. I texted Kim on the middle of the week and I said, Kim, this is brutal. I feel like a hypocrite. And I feel like an idiot. Because it's plain as day. It is extremely clear in the scriptures. And I don't get it. It's like I feel duped. I feel hoodwinked, tricked. That the enemy somehow let me go. Murder is a commandment. It's the will of God. It's not a legalism issue. It's just God. Thou shalt not murder. Adultery? Yeah. No other gods? You got it. Go down the list of 10. Yes. When we get to this one, the Sabbath, we're like, It's just asinine. It's bonkers. And I've been wrestling with it. And I've been wrestling with the fact that how could I miss this? I got a lot of feedback from this first sermon from last week. Positive, not pushback, feedback, but like, hey, this was great, and it opened my eyes, and I saw this, and I needed to hear it, yada. But I wanted to give us a working definition as we move into week 2. Again, I've preached on the Sabbath, but never a series, never 4 weeks, never just kind of stayed in it and let the uncomfortable nature of it, the reality of it, just start to press in. But it's a 24-hour time period set aside to stop. That's not just stop, but it's to stop. It's to rest. It's to delight. And it's to worship. It's to ascribe God glory, give Him credit, focus on Him. It's the best day of the week, I would submit to you, if practiced. At least that's what people tell me in my limited experience. is showing me, you know what? I think it is. I don't want to go deep into an update because I want to get a little bit of history, a little bit of practice. But I started it. I got 18 hours in this week. So it wasn't a Sabbath because the Sabbath's a 24-hour period. Just like you can't tithe 5%. Tithe is 10%. It's just a weird thing that its definition becomes that. Like you can't throw something up and it's just kind of up. It's either up or down. That's what it is. But I think in our era of chronic exhaustion, emotional unhealth, high anxiety, frenetic pace, and even spiritual stagnation, few things are more necessary than the recovery of this ancient practice. If it feels preachy, if it feels pastorally heavy, directed, if you see remember, if you're a nonverbal person, it's like 70% of communication nonverbal. When you see this out, this is like a little hammer, emotional hammer. You know, if people do their fist, then it's like, whoa, he's really making a point. This is like the mini hammer. So if I start doing this, just feel like, oh, he's hammering on us, but he's trying to be gentle. I even caught myself as I'm pointing, going, hey, don't hammer too hard, too quick. Like, let the sermon build. Last week, we talked about the practice of the Sabbath prior to the law in Exodus 16. We looked at Sinai and how the Israelites are freed from Egypt to this newly formed group is not quite formed. They're trying to become a covenant nation. They're wandering in the wilderness, and God's teaching them to trust Him through the giving of manna, but not the hoarding of manna. It's like this daily rhythm of trust. But then we saw last week that you got to stockpile for 2 days on one day, when the other days it would rot, it would stink, it would be no use. But this one day, so that you could focus on only God and not the collection of your manna, you could stockpile enough for 2 days, and that day was this Sabbath. And so God introduces this Sabbath rest to His people before they even reach the mountain, before Sinai. And by the time we arrive at Exodus 20, the Israelites are encamped at Mount Sinai. Moses is up on the mountain. He's receiving the law, the 10 Commandments, and God codifies the Sabbath as one of the core commandments. In a sense, the Sabbath command becomes this hinge between Israel's life of slavery in Egypt, where they had no rest, and their new life as God's covenant people, where they get to rest in paradise, in His provision. So if you have your Bibles, turn to Exodus 20. That's where we'll be today. Moses has come down to the people in verse 25 and the end of 19, and we pick it up in Exodus 20. I'll read all 10 commandments, and we'll just work our way through it. And God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven, above, or on earth below, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses His name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land your Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, or his ox or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. 10 commandments. But if you look at 8 through 11, he presents the Sabbath command as perhaps the most carefully explained of the 10 words. Not because it's more important than the others, but because it's so foundational that it required clarity. The command is to remember the Sabbath, hearkening back to the practice of it in Exodus 16, saying, hey, this is part of who we are. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine earlier, and he said, man, rest is just not in my DNA. And I pushed back on him a little bit. I was like, yeah, it is. It is in your DNA. We've just repressed it. We've just forgotten it. This command to remember assumes prior knowledge. It's more than just cessation, stopping. It's consecration. It's holy. It's this balance of remember is one part of it, and keep it holy is another part of it. If you just stop, that's great, but it's more than that. It's about making it holy, keeping it holy. The Jews to this day speak of it as we keep it holy. We focus on the holiness of it. So it's not just a day off or a stop from chores or slowing down. It's this creating space for holiness, a day that belongs solely to God. It's interesting because of all the commands seem very personal, this one has to widen the scope. Hey, not only are you to rest, but don't pawn off your work on anybody. This is community. You can't put it on your spouse. You can't put it on your kids. You can't put it on your hired workers. You don't even put it on your animals. Everybody is to rest. Of all the 10, it's interesting how this one has the broadest scope, the most communal scope, preventing the shifting of work onto others and establishing this communal, egalitarian rest that reflects covenant faithfulness. It's a deep theological thing. And in the theological grounding of the Sabbath in verse 11, it roots its practice not in human fatigue. Like some people might be like, well, I just love what I do. I don't need to rest. This is not rooted in human fatigue because God rests. And it wasn't like God created the earth and was like, oh, my back, I'm so tired. It's not about rest. It's about rhythm. It's about completion. It's about trust. It's about delight. It's weekly participation in the order that God himself established for creation and redemption. It's a reminder to Israel that they are no longer slaves defined by what they can produce or their endless labor, but as a people that are invited to rest, to trust, to worship. Again, we have to focus on what it is. It's not just a promotion of inactivity. The Sabbath reorients our life around God. And I can sense the palpable discomfort with the topic, and I want you to know I'm with you. I thought so much about this week. I kept asking God, why so much emphasis? And people have often asked me, you ever use ChatGPT? I use ChatGPT in my sermons, not to write a sermon, but to do certain things. So I said, hey, take the commandments, and if they were 100%, of all 10 were 100%, what would the breakdown be? And so I actually found it, and I had it put it with regards to geography. This is how my mind works. I'm a visual guy. So no other gods, it's about 2% of the whole 10 commandments. That's New Jersey. Shout out to Evan Callahan. New Jersey up there in the top right. If you were to go back to that list, because I don't have it memorized, no idols, 43%. That's a lot. That's California, God's name. That's a big thing, 55%. That's wrong. That's not 55% of 14 words. I apologize. That's a typo. I'll figure out what it is. ChatGPT, it says on it makes mistakes. So I just copied it. Don't hold me. 14 words. The Sabbath, 78 words, 26%. By far, I bet you it's supposed to be 15%. I bet I typoed that. 78 words, 26%, a fourth of the 10 commandments. If you go forward to the states, since I don't trust my math anymore, I know the states are right. Click. So you got these ones. Then California's the no other idols before God. But Texas, the big grand state of Texas, that's the Sabbath. Like, why so much emphasis? Why is it so important? It used to be more important to us. I did a little more research, and I looked at our nation and the practice in our relationship with the Sabbath. Do you know that 100 years ago, some 90 to 70% of businesses were completely shut down? You couldn't do hardly anything. 30 is a real soft. I think it's closer to 90 100 years ago. About 1 in 10 were open. Now, 95% of businesses are open 7 days a week. It's a shift. It's a shift. A pastor and author, John Ortenberg, says this: never forget you are a human being, not a human doing. And the Sabbath helps with that. If we honor it, if we observe it, if we keep it. Walter Brueggemann, a theologian and author, brilliant, he says, Sabbath is not simply a pause that refreshes. It's the pause that transforms. And for my limited, albeit 11th hour, participation in practice and observation of it, that resonates. I feel super different today than I did on Thursday. But I know what I've done. And that is that I've broken this mental mold of what this thing is. And so I would like to ask you to just consider, just have an open mind. What if we began reframing rest as obedience rooted in freedom, and not, I got to do it because Joel's trying to make us Jewish. I knew it, the name Bara. Here it comes. What if it was just obedience rooted in freedom? What if God actually knew what he was doing when he made us? And for most of us, it's not condemnation. This is not me just being judgmental or thinking I'm all great. But for most of us, we hadn't even tried it. Kim and I didn't even know what we were doing. Kim asked me to get something out of a cupboard up high. She goes, can you do this on the Sabbath? I think. I don't know. I'm tall. I'll try. It was like we were figuring something out for the first time. And I thought, I got to talk about this. There's uncomfortable things to preach on, but if you practice it, it at least gives you a little bit of unction. You feel like the Lord is going to bless it. Not a perfection. I don't ever hit all the things all the time at all. But I'm preaching on tithing like crazy because I do it. It's something I'm familiar with. It's something I see in the scriptures, and so we practice it. But this was this past Friday at sundown till Saturday at sundown was my first attempt to take a 24-hour period and stop and rest and delight and worship. And if you're looking for a pastor that hit all 10 commandments better than me, you should try somebody else, because I'm going to confess to you, it's not been my practice. But I do not want anyone to go, well, Joel said or Joel did. That is a weak reason. Like, I don't even have to really give this disclaimer in this church, because most of y'all are a little bit kind of maverick anyway. You're not, no one's just like taking it and going, well, Joel said, like, but why? What could be the reason for this? Why would God make such a big deal of this? Why would God have it include so many people? Like, why? 2 functions. Sabbath is a matter of identity formation. For slaves don't rest, sons and daughters do. He needs you and I to remember that we are His, we're His sons, and we are His daughters, and He will provide. We don't have to produce, He will provide. We don't have to consume, He will give. Like, for Israel, this was so important, because the temptation to go back to the slave mindset. I said it last week, you can be saved and still live enslaved. And the second reason, the second function, purpose, whatever you call it, I believe is that Sabbath is a matter of identity preservation. For identity erosion leads to soul destruction. And if you think for a moment that's hyperbolic, that's just me trying to use some fancy terminology, it was a prayerful struggle for those last 2 words. But I believe it to my core. That our soul erodes away when we live so detached, so independent. And I don't even have to know that personally. I can know that biblically. If you were to follow Israel from Exodus 20, I mean, how quickly did they break that first commandment, no other gods before me? They're like crafting golden, calves while Moses is walking down. They're like, here we go. Like that was quick. But throughout the history of God's people, Israel, there was this constant rejection of the Sabbath. And it was the thing that was to set them apart from other nations. It was the thing that people would look to and go, oh, you know what? These are the people that do this. That's a big deal. They shut it down. They focus. From Exodus 20 onward, the Sabbath becomes a marker of Israel's covenant identity. And then you have the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, and they're all saying, hey, remember who you are. When they kept it, they remembered who God was. When they forgot it, they forgot who God was. Now, we just had a year on grace. So let me tell you something else the Sabbath can quickly become. A checklist, a rule, a have to, and that would null and void a whole year's focus on grace. Like, if that's how we think of this, we're going to miss it. And then we're just going to make it another thing we got to do. And if the Sabbath, this beautiful gift, becomes a got to instead of a get to, we've missed the gift. And we've missed the heart of the giver behind it. But when they blew it, when they stopped it, when they forgot it, when they made it just a list, their society suffered. Their identity blurred. And they moved further from God's design. And I don't know about you. I want to move closer to God's design. I want to be more in step with the Spirit. I want to be formed and transformed into the image. I want to follow. I don't want to just believe in this guy, Jesus. I want to follow his steps, and I want to be with him. That's this first 3 months of the year. And I want to become like him. That's the 3 middle months. And then I want to do what he did. And I want people, when they look at Joel, they see Jesus, not Joel. The Sabbath is profoundly personal, and it's deeply communal. It's never just a day off. It's this invitation that we get to open to remember who we are in God's story. And I confess, like Israel, I can lose my way. I can forget who I am. I can become a human doing instead of a human being. The Sabbath's not about a missed day. Ignoring the Sabbath is about a forgotten identity. Neglect leads to erosion. And erosion, through in the Scriptures, if we were to take our time and walk all the way to the book of Malachi, that led to exile. Soul erosion, societal exile. Forgetting rest leads to forgetting God. Now, we're going to see a little bit next week and a lot in the following week how this is part of the Sabbath. Because I'm an open book, especially today, I'm not sure exactly how the priests functioned on the Sabbath. I think they did. I know this week or next week I'm going to talk about Jesus did some stuff on the Sabbath that the Jews didn't do, and Jesus reframes it. So again, it's the learning process for all of us, right? I think that's one of the reasons we feel like we can take it off. It's not like, well, Jesus murdered, so I can murder. Like Jesus preached on the Sabbath. Okay. If that's your reason to not honor the Sabbath because Jesus, healed on it, preached on it, we're gonna hit that next week. I'll give you another updated report. We'll see what happens. See if I can get past 18 hours. And it wasn't a pure 18 hours at all. But it was an interesting step. As I was praying, I thought, what's the Sabbath really like? What could it be like? And I thought of my favorite passage in the New Testament, probably the whole Bible, Luke 15, the story of the prodigal son, which I call the prodigal father. Do you know both sons had a mistaken identity? Both sons in Luke 15 missed it. They got it wrong. The younger son rebels. Some of us are living in rebellion. Some of us haven't given our life to Jesus. Let this story be an invitation to you to come back to the Father. But this younger brother, he gets it wrong, and then he realizes, I made a mess of my life. I need to go back to the Father. But he has this mistaken identity. He misses the relationship at the core, and he goes, I'm going to go back to my dad, and I'm going to say, make me like one of your slaves, one of your hired men. And the dad will have none of it. He doesn't want that as the relationship. He doesn't want us just to believe in him or just to obey him or just to follow some checklist. He throws this huge, big, beautiful party. He says, come on, let's go. Here's the ring. Slaves went barefoot. Sons wore shoes. Put the sandals on them. Get the best robe. And you think, well, that's crazy. That's beautiful. But most of us here today, we're not really the younger brother. We could see how he could mess it up. He's a younger brother. He's still outside of the home. He's still in rebellion. That's why he thought like that. That's why the dad had to beg and plead with him. Oh, wait, no, the dad didn't have to beg and plead with him. There was another brother that was outside in the fields. If Jesus is telling the story, that's us. And he is so mad that the younger brother gets this party. He's so mad that the younger brother gets this communion, this beautiful celebration. He's like, what? He says this. All these years I've been slaving for you. And the dad's like, oh my gosh, you missed it too? He says, son, everything I have is yours. It's not about slaving. It's about being a son. It's about being a daughter. It's about being mine. And I don't want us to make Sabbath something that we're slaves to. I want us to see Sabbath as something that slaves couldn't do because they constantly had to produce. They constantly had to have quotas. They constantly had to work. They couldn't rest. They couldn't stop. They couldn't delight. They couldn't worship. But we can. And we get to because of this gift. Scientists are determining now that most behavioral changes, the things that really stick, the things that really matter. If you really want to make a change, you don't start with the behavior, you start with the identity. You don't say, I got to eat healthy. You say, I'm healthy. And the more you think of yourself as somebody that's healthy, the less chance, like it feels really weird to say I'm healthy while you're just smashing Oreos at 11 at night. Personal testimony, right? But if you start to see yourself as healthy, you start to do the things that healthy people do. So identity becomes this thing, right? Let me tell you right now, we remember who we are when we remember whose we are. And God gave us this gift, this day, this 24-hour period, this time, this opportunity to remember. We are not slaves. We are sons and daughters. It's our identity. It's to be formed through the Sabbath and preserved through the Sabbath. My heart and hope for you and me is that we try it. Seems weird, right? For your pastor to be like, give a shot at no murder this week. Take a crack at no lying this week. Just see what happens. Just sounds really weird, doesn't it? But I know if you're like me, you've thought of it so unlike the other ones. And really it is. It's the Texas of the commandments. It's the one that has this broad and beautiful scope. It's this one that was indicative of Israel. When they were remembering it, they were remembering God. But when they forgot the Sabbath, they forgot God. And know that I'm praying for you and invite you to pray for me as we consider this great command, this great gift, the Sabbath. Let's pray. Father, if there's anybody that's never given their life to you, I pray that today would be the day. And for those that have given their life to you and attempted to follow you, I pray that we would see how this practice that your people for thousands of years have done to their benefit, to their blessing, and how when they've not done it, it's been to their detriment, their struggle, our struggle, my struggle. So God, speak to us through the Scriptures, through Holy Spirit, through this broken jar of clay that's me. But I pray that the treasure of your truth, the treasure of your word would go forth and that we would be convicted to honor the Sabbath, to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Not because we're Old Testament, not because we're trying to be Jewish, not because we're trying to accrue favor, but because it's this gift that you've given us, this beautiful opportunity, this holy space, because you did it, because you said it. See next week, because Jesus did it. And even in the struggle, even in the uncomfort, the tension, Father, I just want us to please you and be pleased in you. I want our joy to be connected to you, not in our stuff, not in our titles, not in our abilities, just resting in you. Let us come to the party, music and dancing, because we are sons and daughters. We're not slaves. You'll take care of us. You can be trusted. Thank you for the Scriptures, ones that are easy to preach and easy to live or seemingly easy, and even the ones that are challenging, the ones that seem really, really uncomfortable. I pray we would obey, because there's freedom in that. There's freedom in it. I love you, Jesus. Thank you that you love us. I just want to be with you. I just want to be with you. Bless us. For Jesus, I ask you. For a church that I love.